Thank you, choir. The appropriate song for this morning. Last Saturday, Debbie and I went to a wedding in Nashville, Illinois. And we had to sign something or let them know that if we were going to stay for the reception. And we rode up there with another couple. And as we were going, we were hoping that we would be sitting at the same table because sometimes at wedding receptions they have assigned seating. And so we wanted to sit with them because we rode up there with them. It's about a 3-hour trip. And when we got there, they had a list and assigned seating, and we were fortunate. We were sitting at the same table as the couple we rode up with, and also another couple that we knew also. And so it is with all of us, whether you go into the lunchroom or you go to reception or you go to some banquet or whatever. You sort of, when you walk in, you sort of scan the room and you look for people that you want to sit with. You want to sit with people who are like you. Who like you, and people you're familiar with, maybe family or whoever. You just don't want to sit with strangers. You want to sit with people you have something in common with, and nothing wrong with that. We're just like that. Now, we've been caught into situations in which that didn't happen. I did a wedding for a lady by the name of Allison in Knoxville. She was treasurer of the former church that I was in, and she waited later in life to get married, and I always teased her. I told her, if I'm going to do your wedding, I don't want to do it in a wheelchair. You're going to have to speed this thing up. And so she did. She got engaged and was married, and I had the pleasure of officiating that wedding. But we went to the rehearsal dinner, and there was assigned seating, but she had the brainstorm of mixing people up and getting people to sit with other people that we didn't know. Well, her fiance, her groom, the groom was named Desmond, and he was from England. And his whole family was from England. His mom and dad were doctors in England, physicians. I was seated by Allison, but across from me was his mother, who was from England, and also one of the family members who was a stockbroker on the New York Stock Exchange, and he lived in New York. These people had money. They owned a Greek island in which they took vacations on. The groom's sister was married to a guy who wrote for the Bloomberg articles on diamonds. Debbie was seated by the uncle who was from England, and I don't know how she got in this discussion, but he said, how about those charities in America? I don't understand these charities. And Debbie tries to explain to him about Helping Hands in Henry County. That just didn't, it was crazy. You talking about out of place, we felt like two Jews at a ham picnic. We felt so out of place. And then when you get in those type of predicaments, we like it. We want to sit with people we know, people we got something in common with. And sometimes we're very observant, and we sort of look and see people that maybe just don't fit, where the group that they're in, and we sometimes speculate and wonder, how did that happen? Well, that is one of the criticisms of Jesus. One of the main criticisms. Now, who were one of the main critics of Jesus? Well, it was the religious crowd. It was the religious establishment. It was the church of that day, so to speak. They were very critical of Jesus because he was hanging around the wrong crowd. He was hanging around sinners. Of all things, sinners. Now, it's, like last week we talked about Nicodemus. Nicodemus, he comes up to Jesus and he says, teacher, I know you're a man from God. So they recognize him be a man of God, a miracle worker, a rabbi, a teacher, a prophet. And so why in the world, with this kind of character and integrity, what are you doing hanging around sinners, known sinners? And it just blew them away as to why he was doing that. Now in the Mark, the 2nd chapter, and beginning at verse 15, there's a verse that says, while he was reclining at the table in Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were also guests with Jesus and his disciples, because there were many who were following him. When the scribes and the Pharisees saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? When Jesus heard this, he told them, those who are well don't need a doctor, but the sick do need one, and I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners. Now, if you ever go to the doctor's office, I know you go get a physical and you may go get a well check or whatever, but if you go to the doctor's office, most of the people you find there will be sick. There is something wrong with them. There's some symptom or something that requires them to the need of a physician or a doctor. And so Jesus is using that example. That's the same way spiritually. There has to be a recognition of some spiritual frailty, something wrong spiritually, and you need a physician. We need Jesus. And so here, this is what Jesus is trying to express to the Pharisees and the scribes. The people who need some spiritual attention. They need forgiveness. They need compassion. They need love. They need mercy. But he couldn't, and this is the difference, he couldn't show the Pharisees and the scribes love, forgiveness, compassion, mercy, because they didn't think they needed it. They thought that, hey, I'm okay. I obey the law. I do everything that I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't really need this forgiveness and the compassion in which Jesus comes to give. But those people, it was those people, those sinners, they're the ones. But there was the difference was the recognition that they needed it. Now, they were his critics, the church of that day, and he unleashes on them. On the Matthew, the 23rd chapter, it's too long it's like 39 verses, and I can't read all of it, but he tells them, it's that passage in Matthew 23, and where's all the woes. Woe unto you this. Woe. He calls them serpents, vipers. He says, you're the people of the law. You're supposed to be the religious establishment, and you're closing the door on these people. You're not letting them in. You're closing the door right in their face. And there's one verse, I'm going to just pick and choose, the 23rd verse of the 23rd chapter. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You pay a tenth of mint, dill, and cumin. In other words, you tithe, you give to the church. Yet you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. These things should have done without neglecting the others. In other words, you do everything you're supposed to do, supposedly, and pride yourself in doing those things, but you're neglecting the most important things. You've got to have both of them together. He said you neglected justice, mercy, and faith. And they're so meticulous. They're so adamant obeying those laws. but yet neglect the more important things. This past week, my son texted me. He said he came into work, and he said he just asked his coworkers. He said, "Did you hear about the 49 Muslims that were killed in the mosque in New Zealand?" And one of his coworkers, who is supposedly a conservative Christian, said, "Yeah, wasn't that awesome?" Pretty shocking, isn't it? Those people, whether they're Muslims, Jews, Hindus, or Christians, they are people God created in His image. Where is the mercy? Where is the love? Where is the compassion? Where is the forgiveness? Whenever the church gets that hard-nosed and so staunch in thinking they got it together, we are right in the bull's eye of Jesus' words of woe unto you. When you've neglected the more important things of justice and mercy and faith. God help us if we ever get to that point. And I have to admit to you, I've told you about our mission trips to Dakar, Senegal, where there's like 92% Muslims. There were people in the church that criticized us. What are you going over there for? Well, they're lost. They don't have Christ. They need Christ. They need Jesus. Those people in New Zealand, they need Jesus. Just like the people there in the church in South Carolina, just like the church in Texas, just like the people in the synagogue that were killed in Philadelphia. They all need Jesus. And we as the church, my goodness, we've got to have this mercy. There's a story recorded in Luke chapter 77, 36 through 47. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Then one of the Pharisees invited him, that's Jesus, to eat with him. He entered the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. And a woman in the town who was a sinner found out that Jesus was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house. She brought an alabaster jar of fragrant oil and stood behind him at his feet, weeping, and began to wash his feet with her tears. She wiped his feet with the hair of her head, kissing them and anointing them with a fragrant oil. When the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, "This man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what kind of woman this is who's touching him. She's a sinner." Jesus replied to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." "Teacher, say it." Creditor had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. Since they could not pay it back, he graciously forgave them both. So which of them will love him more? Simon answered, "Well, I suppose the one who forgave him more." "You have judged correctly." Turning to the woman, he said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she with her tears has washed my feet and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but she hasn't stopped kissing my feet since I came in. You didn't anoint my head with olive oil, but she has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven. That's why she loved me much. The one who is forgiven little loves little." Understand, again, Simon doesn't think he needs forgiveness. The woman knows she needs love. She needs forgiveness. She needs compassion. She needs mercy. And Jesus extended it to her. And she loved him and responded accordingly. But Simon, he didn't need it. Now I think this is the key. This is the key to the whole passage. If you don't need mercy, you don't give mercy. If you don't need mercy, you don't give mercy. But the forgiving are the ones who forgive. There's another parable